Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about Cassius Longinus' work on the Sublime. On the Sublime, 1st century AD, Cassius Longinus, 213 AD, 273 AD. We can pronounce the name as Cassius Longinus or Longinus. Both are correct. Cassius Longinus was a Greek philosopher and a literary critic, traditionally attributed, not sure, as the author of the seminal treatise on the Sublime, though modern scholarship debates the exact authorship. Longinus was known for his deep engagement with the classical literature, rhetoric, and philosophical thought, blending Platonic ideals with a rhetorical criticism. Longinus emphasized the power of elevated language and a profound emotional impact in literature, making his work foundational in the study of aesthetics and their literary criticism. Longinus on the Sublime is a seminal and enduring treatise on how literature can transcend the mundane to achieve awe-inspiring power. Blending aesthetic sensitivity, rhetorical precision, and a moral philosophy, it teaches that true literary greatness lies in a grandeur of thought and emotional force. It emphasizes on moral integrity, passion, and the timeless nature of art, ensures its continued relevance in the study of literature, criticism, and human creativity. Explanation of the title. The term sublime, that is hypsos in Greek, refers to elevated, grand, or lofty expression in literature. Longinus uses it to describe a writing that it transports the reader, creating awe, grandeur, and emotional elevation. For Longinus, the sublime is not just ornamentation, it is what makes literature immortal and impactful. Now, the author and a context. Attributed to Longinus, the identity is disputed. It could be Cassius Longinus or an unknown earlier critic, written during the Hellenistic or Roman imperial period. The treatise is addressed to a friend named Postumius Terentianus, and it critiques an early work by Caecilius of Calais. Rooted in the rhetorical tradition, but bridges rhetoric, literary theory, and aesthetics. Now let's have a look at the inspiration for the work. Reaction against mechanical rhetoric and stylistic decay in literature of the time. Written to guide orators and writers on how to elevate their expression beyond the ordinary. Aimed at defending genuine literary excellence against the formulaic techniques promoted by contemporaries like Caecilius. Now let's analyze the major themes in the work. The nature and the power of the sublime. Sublimity evokes ecstasy, awe, and admiration, lifting the soul of the reader. Sources of the sublime. True sublimity arises from innate genius, moral character, and emotional intensity, rather than technical skills alone. Emotional transport. A hallmark of the sublime is its ability to overwhelm reason and logic, producing spiritual elevation. Art versus nature. Sublime writing requires a balance between natural inspiration and artistic discipline. Corruption of taste. Longinus critiques the moral and cultural decay of his time, linking ethical decline with the decline in literary greatness. Timelessness of great writers. Sublime literature transcends time and culture. Longinus praises Homer, Plato, Demosthenes, etc. for their enduring impact. The division of the work. Though the full text consists of fragmentary 50-plus sections, the ending is lost. The treatise can be divided thematically as follows. Part first. Introduction and a critique of Caecilius, sections 1 to 5. Longinus critiques Caecilius for omitting the definition of the sublime, stresses that sublime writing must be evaluated for effect, not just structure. He begins his own definition. The sublime is a kind of excellence or grandeur in discourse that moves the audience to ecstasy. Part 2. Definition and the effects of the sublime, sections 6 to 8. The sublime is what elevates the soul of the audience, making them feel more than human. It evokes awe, admiration, and a sense of the infinite. Sublimity is rare but unmistakable when encountered. Part 3. 5 sources of the sublimes, sections 9 to 16. Grandeur of thought comes from the writer's noble mind and a lofty vision. Strong and inspired emotion must be genuine and powerful, not contrived. Figures of thought and speech. Rhetorical devices must be used with a strategic passion, not mechanical ornamentation. Noble diction includes choices of words, metaphors, epithets, and a composition. And the fifth element is dignified and elevated composition. That is, arrangement and rhythm of sentences should match the grandeur of thought. These sources must combine harmoniously to achieve the sublime. A deficiency in one may ruin the effect. Now part 4. Examples of sublimity, section 17 to 35. Longinus draws from Homer, Plato, Sophocles, Demosthenes, Sappho, and others. He analyzes how these writers use the thought, emotion, and language to achieve grandeur. He contrasts true sublimity with a turgidity, that is false grandeur, and a frigidity, that is affected emotion. Part 5. Style and moral integrity, sections 36 to 40. Longinus asserts that moral character influences sublimity. Writers must possess moral greatness and a passion to create sublime art. He also criticizes materialism and a tyranny as stifling noble thought and expression. Now part 6. Corruption of literary taste, sections 41 to 44. He condemns the moral decline of society as reflected in the decay of literary taste. He states that luxury, greed, and slavishness erode the daring spirit needed for the sublime. Now part 7. Fragmentary endings, sections 45 to 50 plus. Incomplete, possibly missing the conclusion. The treatise ends in the middle of an analysis, leaving its final argument open. Now let's have a look at the key arguments of Longinus. The sublimity is about emotional impact, not just the technical correctness. True greatness in writing stems from a fusion of nature, that is inspiration, and art, that is technique. Morality and a grandeur of soul are necessary for sublimity. Sublime literature can uplift humanity, giving it a sense of immortality. Not all elevated style is sublime. False elevation leads to bombast. Examples are essential to criticism. Longinus supports theory with rich literary illustrations. Now let's have a look at the contemporary relevance of this essay. It's foundational in aesthetic theory. Influences thinkers like Bach, Kant, and Schopenhauer in their reflections on the sublime in art and nature. Inspiration for Romanticism. Longinus emphasizes on emotion, genius, and the overwhelming power of art prefigures romantic ideals. Modern literary criticism. Longinus' work bridges classical rhetoric and modern aesthetic theory, showing how style, ethics, and politics interact in literature. Post-colonial and political readings. Longinus' critiques of tyranny and moral collapse resonate with scholars examining literature under authoritarian or colonial regimes. Creative writing and oratory. Longinus continues to be taught in courses on rhetoric, stylistics, and poetics as a timeless guide to achieving power and expression. Now let's have a look at the main quotes from the essay. First one. Sublimity is the echo of a great soul. This quote encapsulates Longinus' belief that true sublimity in literature arises not just from technique, but from the nobility and greatness of the author's inner character. A grand soul naturally gives rise to elevated thoughts and expressions. This aligns with his broader view that a genuine emotion and a moral greatness are foundational to sublime writing. Now the next quote. The effect of elevated language upon an audience is not persuasion but a transport. Longinus differentiates between rhetoric that merely convinces and a language that overwhelms and elevates. Sublime speech moves the audience beyond reason into awe and wonder. This shows his central concern with emotional impact and the transcendent power of style. Now the next quote. The true sublime uplifts the soul, it swells our chest and makes us feel proud and exalted. This explains the visceral, almost physical reaction sublime writing causes in the reader or listener. Sublimity inspires and elevates, connecting us to something greater than ourselves. It is a spiritual and emotional ascent rather than a mere intellectual stimulation. Now the next quote. Nothing is truly great which it is great to despise. Longinus argues that greatness must be above contempt or triviality. If something can be easily dismissed, it lacks true sublimity. Sublime writing stands the test of time and scrutiny because it stems from eternal truths or universal grandeur. This quote reminds critics and writers alike that greatness carries inherent dignity. Now the next quote. Sublimity consists in a certain loftiness and excellence of language. This is a core definition of the sublime in a Longinus theory. He identifies not just the content, but a linguistic elevation as a hallmark of greatness. This kind of excellence in a language creates a lasting and a powerful impression. Now the next quote. The best effect of the sublime is to transport the listener out of himself. Sublime literature causes a form of emotional rapture, pulling the audience into an altered state. Longinus sees this power as the pinnacle of literary achievement. It bypasses reason to evoke awe, admiration, and a sense of wonder. Now the next quote. A well-timed silence is more eloquent than words. Longinus highlights the rhetorical power of pause and restraint. Knowing when not to speak or describe can produce a more powerful emotional effect than excessive detail. This demonstrates the importance of subtlety in creating the sublime. Now the next quote. Nature always loves to be overcome and mastered. This quote reflects the ancient admiration for human excellence that it surpasses natural limitations. Sublime writers, in a Longinus view, channel the power to transcend nature through language. It emphasizes the idea that art can elevate human experience above the ordinary. Now the next quote. Figures are powerful not merely in themselves, but by their appropriateness to the occasion. Rhetorical figures, like metaphors or irony, must be suited to context and purpose to achieve sublimity. Forced or misplaced ornamentation ruins the grandeur of writing. Longinus stresses the importance of harmony between form and content. Now the next quote. No treatise on sublimity could be complete without a discussion of the emotions. Longinus insists that emotional force is integral to sublime writing. Without genuine feeling, even technically brilliant writing falls flat. Emotions bring urgency and authenticity, lifting the language beyond ordinary expression. Now the next quote. The sublime, wherever it occurs, consists in a certain excellence and a distinction in expression. This reaffirms Longinus' aesthetic criterion that a language must rise above the commonplace. Sublimity is marked by expression that stands out through grandeur, grace, or intensity. It is not simply about the content, but how it is conveyed. Now the next quote. The best authors aim at a grandeur, not by mere ornamentation, but by the weight and greatness of their thoughts. Longinus warns against superficial embellishments and celebrates substantive greatness. True sublimity emerges from profound ideas expressed with clarity and strength. This quote speaks to the depth required for lasting literary achievement. Now the next quote. The sublime lies close to the ridiculous. This observation shows Longinus' awareness of the fine line between grandeur and absurdity. Overreaching in style or emotion can lead to bombast rather than elevation. The sublime requires balance, taste, and a proportion to succeed. Now the next quote. A great style springs from great thoughts. Longinus consistently ties the quality of style to the magnitude of ideas. Without powerful and noble thoughts, even a most polished writing lacks substance. It is a reminder that content and form must align for sublimity to emerge. Now the last quote. Judgment and genius must go hand in hand to produce greatness. Here Longinus identifies the dual pillars of great writing. is inspired genius and a disciplined critical sense. One without the other leads either to chaos or mediocrity. True sublimity arises when a passion is guided by wisdom.